Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am here in beautiful Escazú, Costa Rica on Sunday, May 12th in the year 2024. And we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead, but I have to comment on last week's astrology. I have to say that that whole situation of both Monday and Tuesday was really complicated, and I heard people asking me what's going on, and so is strange, and this one is behaving strangely, and my husband this, and my so that. And Monday, I think of the 2 days, Monday was the more difficult. Monday, it feels like it was a year ago. So much has shifted and changed as a result of what was going on those 2 days. And Monday was really that last passage of Mercury to Chiron for the third time. And I think it brought up a lot of the eclipse energies and really solved problems we may have been having at the eclipse period. And, I also think that if you were having some strong reactions to the eclipses, or they brought up a lot of emotions for you, there may have been some lingering patterns that came up on Monday as a result. Questions you had during the eclipse period, how you were managing through all the emotions of that, and what life circumstances came up for you during the eclipses, and this tapped into that again. But I believe now that there have been solutions and answers for people as a result of that final Mercury passage over Chiron at the eclipse point, or like a degree past the eclipse point, and then the new moon on Jupiter-Uranus. What I feel like was going on was that the last vestiges of the emotions, the questions, the things, the stress of the eclipses came up Monday, and then the solutions and the next chapter came forward with the new moon on the Jupiter-Uranus. And so we are going to have some lingering astrology of that this week, which I'll get to in a few moments. But that was a very strong new moon, setting the stage for the next 14 years because of the Jupiter-Uranus. It was not just any old new moon, as I said last week. In Taurus, it was a new moon conjunct this big configuration, the biggest one of the year. And so when we have to look at last week and sort of remember where we are really connecting with the fact that that new moon really kicked the Jupiter-Uranus into gear. And I definitely felt the Jupiter-Uranus when it happened on April 20th, but I can say from my own experience, Monday was the hotter day. Monday was the day when things were definitely more complicated. And then as the week progressed, the new moon enlightened us to some of the new patterns, the new things we have to embrace going forward. So I think that was profound and very interesting. I did my alchemy class on Wednesday evening. It went very well. Did not have a huge turnout, but nevertheless, it was great because I went through the metastating patterns and with some very nice results. So I was happy to do that and really love working with these patterns and love seeing the changes in people and seeing them open to a new level of possibilities and potentials in their lives. So this is what I do when I work with you in expansion mentoring, and I welcome you to speak to me about it, contact me about it, deb@debmcbride.com. info@thegoldenastrologer.com. And you can also buy the recording of the Alchemy Masterclass. And I would really love more people to have this information and see what's possible for them. So if you want a copy of the Alchemy Masterclass, you can still go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and go to book online, and it will say Alchemy Masterclass, and you can click on it and purchase it, and I can send you the recording. So welcome to do that. And so tomorrow we are having Sun-Uranus conjunct, 5:14 a.m. Eastern time, which is the middle of the night for me. But really we're almost there. The Sun and Uranus are just about conjunct. And it's a fascinating thing because remember, this Jupiter-Uranus happened April 20th. And it was really the beginning of the Taurus season. And now this is the last week of Taurus season. It's going to be Gemini season when we move into a week from now. We're going to start seeing on Monday the 20th. That will be the sun in Gemini. And, so the Jupiter-Uranus happened at the beginning of Taurus season. And they are in Taurus, these two planets. And we are now receiving the Taurus season planets to the Jupiter-Uranus, right? So tomorrow the sun meets Uranus. And this becomes more information for us with the things we've got planned, what we've got up our sleeves for the next 14 years, the things that we set intentions for at the Jupiter-Uranus, and especially last week at the new moon. So remember, the sun and the moon meet together at one point, at the same place at the same time, and that's a new moon. But the moon is faster than the sun, so it met with that Jupiter-Uranus faster, and then it takes the sun a day to move 1 astrological degree, and so it took until tomorrow for the sun to meet Uranus, even though the moon met them last week. So the Jupiter is now ahead of Uranus because Jupiter is the faster moving planet. And so the sun going to Uranus is a little more shaking up of things in our lives, a little more understanding of how deep we can go with our new intentions. It is asking for innovation. It is asking for taking some risks. It is asking us to trust the process. It is asking us to move through this very creative period and see what's there for us, okay? Now they're going to really start to separate Jupiter and Uranus, and they'll be both in Taurus for a little while, and then we get into the end of May, not right now, but we get into the end of May, and it will show us that Jupiter going into Gemini. So this is the ending of Jupiter in Taurus, and Jupiter had that big conjunction with Uranus, and now the sun is coming to meet them. So the sun is coming now and is having a conversation with Uranus on Monday. And then later this week, the sun is going to meet Jupiter and have a conversation with Jupiter, and that will be Saturday the 18th, so a week from yesterday. And so this is great. That's 2:45 p.m. on Saturday. So this is the sun sort of tying together these planets and connecting with them and being present in that vitality sense. Where is the vitality in this aspect? How are we seeing the light in this aspect? Because it's been intense. And I think that the Jupiter-Uranus just alone was intense. And then the sun and the moon coming there. But now the sun is exactly coming to these two planets, and they're going to give us some more information when these planets all get together. So the first is, like I said, there's some innovation here. There's some qualities of what's next and what now for us. And then the sun will go to Jupiter, and the sun meets Uranus and Jupiter every year. Once a year, it'll pass over them. The sun does not retrograde, and so it's a nice positive, high energy aspect for both of these planets. The fact that they are happening to be together and the sun is meeting both of them in the same week is very good. So these are high energy planets. They are positive energy, and the sun goes and meets up with Uranus tomorrow and then Jupiter on Saturday. And so in this bracket between the two planets being touched by the sun, basically this whole week, we can explore the new avenues, the new creativity, the ideas that came to us, and the realizations of last week, which I think more information about Jupiter-Uranus really came forward with that new moon. And I think we're going to get some more definitive stuff as we process sun to each of these planets. What's so remarkable is that the Jupiter-Uranus in and of itself was powerful, but it's an interesting year. This is an interesting dynamic. It's an interesting year. Jupiter-Uranus could have been any time. They could have been conjunct in Taurus last December, right? Depending on, obviously, there's the transit of the planets and how they meet up. But they met in Taurus during Taurus season. They didn't meet in Taurus during Sagittarius season. They didn't meet in Taurus in Leo season. They met in Taurus season. And why am I making this point? Because planets close to the sun, namely Mercury and Venus, are close to conjuncting this configuration, these two planets, Jupiter and Uranus. So the sun was going to go over them. They met, and then the sun met them, and the new moon met them. That didn't necessarily have to happen. Just because planets are in Taurus doesn't mean that they necessarily meet in Taurus season. Big planets. Like, we've gone through many a Taurus season without Uranus being in Taurus, right? And Jupiter. So this is the winding down of Jupiter in Taurus, but it is in the Taurus season that this is all happening. This is not necessarily the case, and that's what I'm trying to explain, and hopefully I'm getting across to you. Jupiter and Uranus could have met at any point in the year in Taurus, at any point in the year with Taurus. And what's going to happen now is that we get these Taurus planets gradually one by one meeting Jupiter and Uranus. Now, that was the moon, the new moon, then there's going to be the sun. And the next planet to meet up with them like this is going to be Venus, which is the ruler of Taurus. And so that's going to happen. The first step of that is going to happen on Saturday the 18th when Venus meets Uranus at 7:41 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, I find this very interesting because it's the very day that the sun meets Jupiter. So the sun will say, hello, Uranus, and have a conversation, and then move along a little bit, and then say, hello, Jupiter, how are you? And move along a little bit, and then eventually go into Gemini. And Venus is going to follow this path, which is great because Venus is, like I said, the ruler of Taurus. So here we are with the ruler of Taurus connecting with this conjunction. And I think this is important because, it could be any other planet. It could be, now Mars is not ready to do this yet. Mars is in Aries and it's not ready to meet them. And actually by the time Mars gets to Taurus, they won't be together anymore. Jupiter and Uranus won't be together anymore. But we've had the new moon. We're having the sun, and then we're going to have the ruler of the sign itself, Venus, meet these planets. This is all very synchronistic, and it's important. There's information in this because as Venus does rule that sign, she's coming along as like the queen of that sign and saying, okay, thanks guys. Thanks for meeting up here. This is your meeting in my home. Thanks for having your meeting at my house. Okay. And she's so fertile when she's in Taurus, and we can experience like maybe really a deep planting of these seeds of fertility, of the things that we want to bear fruit over these next 14 years. Okay. Wow. This is very powerful. And Venus will meet with Jupiter, but that's next week's podcast, okay? She's going to meet with Jupiter on the full moon. And she's going to meet with Jupiter at the end of Taurus, like the same day she goes into Gemini. So it's going to be the very end, and then Jupiter will go into Gemini a couple days later. But we're going to leave that for next week's podcast. But let's say right now, Venus, who is in Taurus in her own sign, is meeting up with Uranus this week, the same time. It's closely following the sun. So, back in January, Pluto went into Aquarius just as Aquarius season was starting. The day Aquarius season started, Pluto went into Aquarius, the sun went into Aquarius, and the same thing sort of happened. The new moon happened in Aquarius on Pluto. So this is why I said a moment ago that this is an interesting year, because how often does it happen that you have a major astrological configuration happening or changing of signs, and it's really getting heated up and triggered by the planets in the season of that sign? So this is deep. This is really some deep stuff. We're not just having matter of fact, okay, last year, Pluto went into Aquarius, right? Pluto went into Aquarius last year in March, at the end of March. Aquarius season was way over. We were starting Aries season, and Pluto went into Aquarius. So it's a very different energy and it's a very different vibe when an outer planet is not getting passed over by all of the seasonal planets of the time. Pluto went into Aquarius, stayed for a little while, and, went retrograde in June and left, right? And it's not like that this year. It went into Aquarius in January, and then we got a whole bunch of Aquarius planets parading over Pluto, which made things really intense. Remember the end of January, beginning of February? Remember all of that? That was powerful. That was powerful. But now we're winding down this Jupiter-Uranus, and we're getting a very different perspective from the new moon. Then this week we'll have more information and different perspective from the sun, and then eventually Venus. So what does this mean for you? As I said before, what intentions did you set? What motivations do you have? Where are you taking this? How is this energy working in your astrological chart? And where is it? Where is it all happening? So where's all this Taurus going? So I have that lecture that I did at the end of last year, the masterclass on Vision of the Future 2024. And I talk all about which house Jupiter and Uranus are falling in, and I went through the houses and I talked about the effects of that. And so if you're interested in getting that, you can contact me. It's also available on my website, Vision of the Future 2024, to purchase. And you can feel the difference between now and before Jupiter Uranus. I mean, there's a definite something has occurred. And for me, my work life, I definitely had some crossroads happen and some awakenings happen and some definite shifts happen and realizations, and they were all very positive. But the emotions of getting there were complicated. We had to pass through those eclipses first. Things happen in right order. Astrologically, they really do happen in right order. And so where are you now with this? What are you feeling? I bet you don't feel as maybe confused or sideswiped or intense as you probably did 3 weeks ago. And this is important. This is important. When that conjunction happened, it was like the beginnings of the seeds. And now we're really starting to say, oh, okay, that is what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh, I thought so. I think I thought I was supposed to be doing that. And the new moon came and it said, yeah, you're supposed to be doing that. That's a good thing. Do that. And you go, okay, now I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Now we're on track. Okay, I get it. All right, thank you. And so Uranus tomorrow, and of course in the lingering of this week, and probably today too, is going to help push you along here with the sun. It's like, oh, I get it now. The sun lightens things up. It enlightens us. So the sun passing over Uranus is going to give us that information that one piece maybe that we're missing. Uranus is a little more obscure. It's an outer planet, and getting its message sometimes is a little more difficult than Jupiter. Like, yippee, Jupiter. Okay, that's later in the week. But first is the more intense life shift that we need to encounter and endure and work with. And that's what the sun is showing us. And then when we get to Jupiter, it's like, whew, okay, great. I get it now. Now I'm set to move forward. And now I just know where I have to align my ducks in a row and get myself in alignment and get everything ready for the next chapter, this big next chapter. So very powerful aspects this week. And, pay attention. How are you feeling? I'll be talking about these on Instagram. How are you feeling? What is it that we are experiencing and working with? How are we working with this energy? So very, very important. The sun does meet with both of these planets every year. However, the fact that they've been together, the sun meets with them in the same week. So this is a continuing story from what we've been building up to for a few months now. And sort of the last chapter as Venus closes the door on all of this. And then Jupiter and Venus both move on to Gemini. So that's next week. But in the meantime, Wednesday, we have Mercury entering Taurus. So finally, Mercury is done with its Aries journey. And it's done its tour of duty through its retrograde and everything. And remember, it went retrograde on April 1st. And here we are. It's May 12th. And On Wednesday the 15th, Mercury will be leaving Aries and going to Taurus. So all this time, and Mercury was in Aries for a while. Remember, it went retrograde at late Aries. So it was, it's been in Aries for a while. And so now some new, fresh fertility with Mercury going to Taurus. Now, it won't get to where Uranus is for a while. It's going to be a few days, weeks before Mercury, pulls its car into Uranus's garage. And what's going to happen is then more information will come. But Jupiter and Uranus will be separated by that time. However, in astrology, we have famous points. And so remember last week that Mercury passed over the famous point of the eclipse that happened only last month as it conjoined Chiron for the last time. And so Mercury will pass the point of where Jupiter and Uranus met. And then you'll get more information. It will be a little watered down, I think, but you'll be reminded of it. You're still getting a reminder and some new information as we move with Mercury and Taurus. So that's going to be a little while before it goes over Uranus. And that's okay. I mean, Mercury will go into Gemini, its own sign, on June 3rd. So it will, between now and really the end of the month, like the last day of the month, it's going to meet Uranus and then eventually go to Jupiter. So that's important to look out for too. Then there is Mercury squaring Pluto. So as soon as it goes into Taurus, it will give us that square to Pluto. Remember, Pluto is still very early in Aquarius at 2 degrees, even though it's retrograde. And Mercury and Pluto will meet in a square, a challenging relationship, on Friday the 17th at 3:44 a.m. Eastern Time. So this is interesting because Mercury is going to finally have its first square to Pluto since it met with Pluto back in Aquarius. That was back in February. And so Mercury is now challenging that position. Where have we been since February? What thoughts have we had? How has our mind changed? Are we analyzing things more? Aquarius is an analytical sign. Are we reaching into our brilliance and genius? What is really happening for us as we approach this Mercury square Pluto? And it's very good for us to kind of take a step back. And we did this also when the sun was in early Taurus. Also, as soon as a planet is stepping into a fixed sign now, it's having a challenging relationship to Pluto because Pluto is early in Aquarius. So this is something very profound. We want to pay attention to our thoughts. We want to see how much we've changed. We want to see the growth that's happened since February and what have our plans done. Now, I think when everything hit Pluto for the first time in Aquarius, that was complicated, intense, emotional, thought-provoking, but majorly transformational. And so now we're getting a challenge to that. And where are we with that? How are we doing with that? What are we looking at when we explore the planet of communication, talking in a challenge to the planet of transformation? What's going on there? So how have we shifted our thinking and our beliefs, because Mercury is all that information, since we have had that conjunction back in February. Now, I do want to talk a little more about Venus and Uranus because I mentioned them as a part of the Uranus-Jupiter. But Venus coming to Uranus is a bit of a shakeup in the field of relationships and finances. So it doesn't mean bad. It means you could hit the jackpot, actually. You don't know what it's going to be, because we know our friend Uranus is the planet of the unexpected, and it can be a little bit of a trigger. But there is the Sun-Jupiter later that day, so I think that this is going to be pretty positive, or at least it's going to be eye-opening. Now, it could be about our relationships and how we are reacting to things in our relationships. It could be about a relationship story we have going on. It could be about how we connect with people during this time, how we are connecting with people, if it's going well, if we are connecting with people who are unusual, erratic, unpredictable, and maybe sometimes the loved ones in our lives, as ruled by Venus, could be behaving in a bit of an unpredictable way, in an unusual way. Or maybe you're the one behaving and reacting in an unusual way. And reacting, Uranus is also a planet of reaction. It's like, what? What? Surprise, what is that going on? What are you talking about? And like something comes out of nowhere. So something could come out of nowhere, but rest assured it would be something that ultimately will benefit you because the Sun Jupiter is still the same day. And as Venus comes to speak to Uranus and then eventually Jupiter, she does have compassion, empathy, sweetness, friendship. She's in her favorite sign. So there's something really maybe beautiful going on. And maybe you'll get an unexpected compliment from someone. And maybe you'll get an unexpected invitation from someone. Maybe there'll be a romance that blossoms that you didn't realize was potentially there. I think it's going to be a nice thing. The moon is going to be in Libra early that day, so that's also Venus's domain. So she's in her own domain, and the moon, the other goddess, is going to be in Venus's other home. So I think this could be potentially very lovely, and it could be a happy surprise, a nice happenstance. And so I want everyone to focus on the good of this. Now, Uranus definitely shakes up the nervous system. So make sure you do some calming things, take a walk, use up the energy between the Sun going to Uranus and at the end of the week, Venus going to Uranus. This is a Uranian kind of week. There may be a bunch of unexpected things. Hopefully you can manage the energy and don't lay awake all night thinking I'm never going to get to sleep tonight because of this crazy Uranus energy. And you want to use it in constructive ways, being creative, exercising, moving your body, doing things that are like spending the energy, moving past it, moving with it. And, something is moving through each of us. So I don't think we're going to have the crash that we had, or at least, that I was watching people and experiencing last Monday. I feel it's going to be more of an enlightenment. There may be some bouncy energy because this is bouncy. These are bouncy planets. So there may be some bouncy energy, Sun, Uranus, Venus, Uranus, Sun, Jupiter. So it's very positive, though. I think that ultimately it's going to be escorting us into a positive direction. And let the energy move through you. Let it pass through you. Don't let it disrupt you, because Uranus is the great disruptor. So just try to take it in and move forward. And I'm sure we'll all have stories at the end of the week. And I think that it's going to be far more supportive of us in this new mission and plan and intention that we each have designed for these next 14 years. What has occurred for us? What has occurred for you? And what will be the next level for you? The other thing that's happening is the Sun is also going to speak very nicely to Neptune on Sunday the 19th. So it will talk to, this is a lot of energy for the Sun this week. It's like a big last hurrah. It's like the finale in the big Broadway musical as the Sun goes to Uranus and then to Jupiter and then to Neptune, and then it changes signs. So it's going to sextile Neptune at 6:45 p.m. next Sunday the 19th, and it is a very lovely sextile. That's nice. The Sun in Taurus, very beautiful, smooth, and earthy and grounded, and the ethereal sense of Neptune in Pisces. It will be a smooth aspect. A sextile is a smooth aspect. So it should be actually very supportive of, this experience of the Sun traveling to each of these planets, coming coming together with each of them. It's also a really good time to be meditating, doing mystical work, getting your astrological chart read by Deb, doing Reiki with Deb, because Neptune is really good. Neptune, I think of Neptune as a Reiki planet. It's healing, it's sensitive, it's intuitive, it's psychic, it's visionary, and the sun, Neptune, is very lovely, and it's a good, sensitive, balanced aspect. So you may have it pass by you without even really noticing it next Sunday, but that's okay. Just know that it's a good supportive thing that's happening right now with the sun and Neptune. And then, of course, if Neptune is sextiling the sun and they're in that relationship to one another, then Neptune is definitely sextiling, supporting the Uranus Jupiter, right? So that's where they are right now. So be with that aspect, let it wash over you. Tune in, do some meditation, do some spirit work, and talk with spirit. And also, if you're interested, you can come meet with me, and definitely make use of this Uranian energy and this Neptunian energy, and get some good answers and some guidance on what's happening next. And you can do all of that at my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, book online, and connect with me for astrology, for Reiki, for New Vision, and also for expansion mentoring that I mentioned earlier in my podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful week ahead. Make some progress. These planets are about progress. So hopefully you will be stepping up to the next level of these wonderful plans we've all set in motion since Jupiter and Uranus have met and the new moon has met with them. Have a beautiful week. Gratitude to everyone for listening, and I'll see you next time. And I will see you on the internet on Instagram this week.